Hello there, YouTube. We are back with another episode of the Digital Gate. This week's episode will probably be a bit shorter compared to previous episodes, mainly because we are pretty much right in the calm before the storm that is BT16, which will be dropping in about a week now officially. For those of you who are checking this series out for the first time, or really checking our channel out for the first time, the Digital Gate is a series where we try to give you guys a quick recap on, anything big that's been going on in the Digimon world over the past couple of weeks. We typically try to go over regional results, card reveals, anime and webcomic leaks, and really anything in between, so that we can try to become your go-to hub for anything Digimon related. Before we hop into the meat of the video itself, a couple of reminders to check out our socials, which will be linked in the video description down below. The link itself will include our Discord, our Instagram, our Twitter, etc. So please feel free to check it out. And lastly, if you enjoy our content, you enjoy what you see, and you want to, consider supporting the channel, please do hit that like and subscribe button. It really does mean a whole lot, and all the support that you guys have given us over the past couple of months really, truly means a lot. So thank you guys for doing all that. With that all being said, today's episode is going to focus on a deck that is true and dear to my heart, and that is HexaBlaumon. So HexaBlaumon was an archetype that made its debut back in the ripe old days of BT5. And a small bit of trivia for everybody watching, this was actually the first deck that I ever constructed and put together. This video really is just also a quick shout out to my fellow OG HexaBlaumon Stan and Barry. My man, if you're watching this video, this one's for you. But HexaBlaumon focused mainly on Source Strip and utilizing your ability to strip away inheritable effects to essentially stop your opponent from activating their own effects and trying to lock them out of the game. Back in BT5 and BT6, we didn't really see a whole lot of big stack decks with like a huge chain of inheritables, right? We really just saw your typical level 3 to level 4, level 5, and level 6, right? So being able to source strip not only was a lot easier, it was also extremely devastating because you could really just take your opponent out of the game and also lock them down with this pseudo stun effect, which basically reads, Digimon without sources can attack players, which back in the day, right, that effect in and of itself was one way to truly lock them out of, just playing the game in general. So I truly think that sort of pseudo stun effect was the foundation for the stun mechanic that we eventually got in BT7, and it's really interesting to see how that also has evolved over the metas, because we've seen can attack, then say can attack or block. Now we're seeing effects such as effects read in ways that say can't suspend, right? I think that's the natural evolution of that mechanic as the game has evolved over time. And if we want to talk about the original HexaBlaumon line, it really consisted of the following cards. We see Balukamon as the level 3, which then went into Paildramon, Chris Paildramon as the level 5, and then the big baddie himself when HexaBlaumon. The line itself really was to utilize your lower level Digimon's when Digivolvement effects to source strip their stacks. So the level 4 Paildramon and the level 5 Chris Paildramon, when Digivolving, you would be able to, source strip. And you would also try to utilize tamers such as Sora Joe from BT5 to really maximize your source strip potential by stripping additional sources when swinging, but also giving yourself more memory to work with, because you're able to sort of activate that, its, necessary requirements to gain memory, right? And your opponent would have to play around not giving you that memory. So then you would try to go into your top end with HexaBlaumon, which you would then use to definitively strip any remaining sources on the field, lock their field out of the game for a turn potentially, and then try to utilize HexaBlaum's effect of when attacking to continually strip sources, freeze out their attacks, and check with jamming. So it's a really, really fun archetype, had a lot of strong tools to do some damage to the meta at the time. Jamming and locking them down really not just was oppressive, but also just really, really good, right? We still see jamming and this lockdown mechanism still in a spot today, and for very good reason. It's still really, really strong. Now, the only problem with HexaBlaumon is that, as you can imagine, you did your swing and it sort of just sat there, right? And stopping your lower end bodies, or stopping your bodies that don't have sources from attacking, it's great and all, but all your opponent really had to do was digivolve over, right? So if they're able to find enough memory and just digivolve, well, HexaBlaumon is now a totally viable target, which is why over time it sort of faded out of the meta, right? Is that you could do your thing, but if you didn't really end the game in a timely manner and your opponent was able to find enough resources or find a way to get back into a stack, aka just leave it in raising, all it really needed to do was wait for the right moment, raise out, and swing into your guy, right? So, you know, as we saw the game evolve and, you know, different mechanics come into play, the game itself grew in terms of power level, we saw HexaBlaumon just fade out and, like I said, just get power crept out of the game. We saw sprinkles of support here and there, such as the Snow Agumon that we got in BT8 and EX3. We also received new Paildramons and Crisp Paildramons in EX3, but never really anything that put the deck back on the map, nor really helped it keep pace with the rest of the meta. So the biggest nail in the coffin, in my opinion, for decks like Hexeblaumon Source Strip was really the rise of the X-Antibody OTK decks that we saw in BT9, right? You know, these decks not only put out a huge stack that made it infinitely harder to utilize that complete Source Strip goal that HexaBlaumon wanted to do, but they also stayed in the back until the right time. So you really just negated any interaction or potentiality for Source Strip to do what it wanted to do. So you end up just sort of sitting there in sort of purgatory. You may be able to like half proc your effects, but you really weren't able to do what you want to do. And then when they were ready to go, they just went ahead and went for it, you know? So as we saw that resurgence of the X-Antibody stuff, I think just HexaBlaumon fell to the wayside. But I think thankfully now with BT16, and I think we've been seeing a lot of this since, you know, I would argue metas in like BT13, BT14, we're seeing a rise of the more traditional style of deck, and we really haven't seen a whole lot of major X-Antibody decks come out into play. You know, Malga got hit, you know, Wargrey will still run around, but other than that, we really don't see a whole lot of like that traditional X-Antibody decks. We are getting X-Antibody decks like Doragora, you know, the Digipolice line to some degree, depending on what flavor you run. But those typically don't run your typical like X-Antibody decks, like say like an Alphamon would, right? So I think we can definitely see Source Strip make a comeback, and we've seen the foundation put into place by cards like Zudomon Ace and Gomamon from BT14. I personally think that Ace cards are becoming more and more rampant as well, you know, and we're only beginning getting more crazier Ace cards with level 6 Aces and level 7 Aces coming into play now too. So I do think Source Strip is going to become even more powerful because now we're also power creeping our ability to Source Strip by allowing us to choose which one we want to take away. So if we choose to take away an Ace, you know, our plays become much more value efficient, much more powerful, and our plays and our turns become a lot more achievable. You know, and then just a couple of weeks ago, the Digimon gods finally answered our call and gave us a brand new line and a brand new keyword for HexaBlaumon to utilize. Before we hop into the line itself, I'll talk about the new keyword, which is Ice Suit. Ice Suit reads, this Digimon compares the number of Digivolution cards instead of DP in battles with non-security Digimon. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. You know, I think it gives Source Strip away, and it gives Source Strip decks like HexaBlaumon ways to get around one of the glaring weaknesses that it had before, which is what I mentioned, right? Because you could easily just swing over it and you set them back to square one, which makes you really hesitant to swing with HexaBlaumon. But nowadays, with how powerful option cards are, with multiple ways of removal, you sort of are like, well, I lose so much value by just not swinging that you end up just doing it, and then you get swung over and you have to start over, right? Now that we have Ice Suit, it makes it that much harder for your opponent to deal with HexaBlaumon, as they're essentially unable to remove it via battle unless your opponent has climbed up to a bigger stack that has enough Digivolution cards to do so. And with how this deck works, that's going to be very, very hard to do. So that means your HexaBlaumon stack will typically stay on the board for at least another turn or two, which, you know, can give you enough time to take control of the game and carry that momentum. It also helps you get rid of pesky top-end bodies, which, you know, as if blue needed another way to deal in control with an opponent's board state. Because if you can imagine, say you just you raise, for example, the new Snow Agumon that also has Ice Suit, come out from raising. If a Death X is suspended without any sources, well, that Snow Agumon can come in and just yeet that Death X to high heaven, which is really funny in my opinion. But I think also a really interesting way for, you know, Source Strip to gain that additional power creep over the meta now, right? Because I think that's truly what was holding it back. Source Strip in and of itself is fine, but it really doesn't have that extra oomph to get past the line and keep up with the rest of the meta. I think Ice Suit most definitely puts it back up on the forefront. Now, let's go over the line itself and what we see. Snow Agumon from EX7 isn't necessarily part of the line, but I did want to throw it out there because it does have the Ice Snow type, which is sort of what the HexaBlaumon line is going up with. It does have Ice Suit. So, like I said, this Digimon compares the number of Digivolution cards instead of DP in battles with non-security Digimon. Has the inherited effect of when attacking and once per turn to trash the top Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. Again, sort of pretty much what you want to see in the line itself. And then the next rookie, the main sort of line rookie, I guess, for HexaBlaumon is the Blukamon. On play, reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Paildramon or HexaBlaumon in its name and 1 card with the Ice Snow trait among them to the hand. Return the rest to the bottom of the deck. Rule, this Digimon also has Ice Snow type and has the inheritable effect of when attacking once per turn to trash the top Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. So I think right off the bat, right, we've got 2 rookies that are pretty much 4-ofs in the HexaBlaumon line, which I think is awesome. I really like this Blukamon as well because not only can you kind of pick up a double hit, you know, you can pick up a Pale, but Pale itself, if I'm not mistaken, and Chris Paildramon and HexaBlaumon has Ice type, so you can also technically do a double hit, right? But it also allows you to search for, you know, other pieces like this Blukamon. You can also pick up, you know, I'm sure we're going to get more Ice Snow, you know, trait Digimon and cards as well, so it'll be really interesting to see what we can do, but I think the Searcher is really, really good. So moving on to Paildramon, which is the level 4. It has the effect of when Digivolving to trash the bottom 2 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. Then, if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, this Digimon gains Jamming and Blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. So this effect will last you through the end of your turn, even if you do Digivolve this Digimon, right? Because it states that this Digimon, so essentially you can Digivolve into Paildramon, gain Jamming Blocker, continue to go up the line, and give your top end Jamming as well, which I think is really, really good. Has the inheritable of when attacking, once per turn to trash the top Digivolution card of one of your opponent's Digimon. So as you can see, just feeds into the archetype's desire to continuously Source Strip, lock down your opponents, and kind of continue going that way. We've got the level 5 now in Chris Paildramon, which has Ice Suit once again. So just as a reminder, this Digimon compares the number of Digivolution cards instead of DP in battles with non-security Digimon. When Digivolving, trash any 2 Digivolution cards of your opponent's Digimon. Then, if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, unsuspend this Digimon. Pretty good. So in theory, you can even swing Jamming with your level 4, go into Chris Pale, and then go in, Digivolve, restand, because your opponent will hopefully have no Digimon with Digivolution cards at that time, and you can unsuspend it. And then inheritable effect, while your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, this Digimon with the Ice Snow trait gains Piercing and +1 security check. Also pretty darn good, because when you pair it with HexaBlaumon, who inherently has security attack +1, which is absolutely insane, also has Ice Suit, so you can just go ahead and swing into your opponent's Digimon if they're suspended, potentially have check +3 or check +2 to have a total of 3 security checks and jamming. And then you have the 1 Digivolving effect to trash any 4 Digivolution cards of your opponent's Digimon. Then, if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, return one of your opponent's Tamers to the bottom of the deck. And then during your opponent's turn, none of your opponent's Digimon with as many or fewer Digivolution cards as this Digimon can suspend. It also has the Ice Note type as well. Absolutely insane, guys, right? Like I said, you could potentially be swinging 3 checks with HexaBlaumon, with piercing, with jamming as well. Then you go ahead and Digivolve to trash sources, any sources, doesn't have to be of 1 Digimon card as well, right? Any 4, meaning that you can just go across the board, pick 4. If your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, which, you know, we'll talk about in a quick second, but is allowing you to return an opponent's Tamer. So for Tamer interaction as well, you completely just take them out of the game there, guys, right? You swing your 3 checks. More often than not, you've put them in a way, knowing how blue works, you can be very memory efficient with your plays. If you can try to choke them to 1 or even 2 at that point, what can they do, right? Because not only that you'll be able to restand, you'll be able to swing and trash more sources, and then swing for the rest of security with HexaBlaumon, right? All they need is something in raising, and you're in bad doo-doo land, right? So I think it's a really, really, really strong card. I'm super excited to see how this is going to work in the meta. I will also say that phrase where they say if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, the way that it was interpreted back in BT5, if your opponent just didn't have anything, you would gain that memory, right? It's very different from like Sora Joe, which kind of needs a Digimon on the field to proc its effect because of the way that it's worded. Here, if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, aka if there is nothing on the field, it also read as to, you know, you're proccing that effect of, well, they've got no Digimon with Digivolution cards, so you can proc that effect. It meets that requirement. If I'm wrong, please do correct me in the comment section down below, but that is my interpretation of it because of how it is worded. So I think it's an absolutely busted card. I can't wait for the ult because I know for a fact I'm going to ult this deck out. And I'm just super, super excited for it. You know, and the last card we're going to talk about is Summon Frost, which is the option card that goes along with it. It reads, main phase, trash the top 2 Digivolution cards of all of your opponent's Digimon. If this effect didn't trash, you may play 1 level 4 or lower Digimon card with the Ice Snow trait from your hand without paying the cost. Then none of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can attack until the end of the turn. Security effect is to activate the main effect. So, again, for a 5 cost, really good, right? You can basically just globally wipe their sources. If you don't trash, which, again, if you have a HexaBlaumon out, I mean, pretty good there too. And then you can play out a level 4 to give yourself another body on board. And then none of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can attack until the end of their turn. So essentially like a Sorai effect, right? So I believe they can get around it by Digivolving, but at the same time, still a really good blanket effect. And that really does do it for the line, guys. So I definitely think this brand new support and mechanic is going to really put HexaBlaumon and just Source Strip in general back on the map. Because I do think the deck now has a whole gambit of tools to deal with whatever is thrown at them. It's also really just important because we get a lot of gas now, which I think Source Strip was a huge struggle with before, is that you could do a whole lot of fun shenanigans, but with how quick and how powerful decks are, you need that gas to keep up, and Source Strip just didn't have that. Now we have it, right? We've got Tamer interaction, we've got jamming, we've got restand, we're able to lock down our opponent and just kind of take them out of the game as well. And, you know, you really just force them to be less efficient with their plays. I think Tamer interaction is huge for this deck, and I'm very, very excited to start theory crafting with this. I'm personally very curious to see how it's going to perform in JP. And, you know, let me know what you guys are cooking with. Barry, if you're watching this again, dude, I'm so excited for this deck. You can't imagine, man. And, you know, I'm just really, really looking forward to just theory crafting, putting this deck together, and just giving it a go. It's been so long since I played HexaBlaumon, And when I saw this line come out, I thought to myself, I really just have to make a video on it. So hopefully you guys did enjoy it. And next week, look forward to us going over the Ultimate Cup that's happening tomorrow by the time this video releases, or maybe the day of, depending on how quickly I can edit this. So it'll be the last event for BT15. I will be playing in it, so I'll be able to give my personal recap on how I did and how things went. So next week episode will probably focus on that. But until then, hopefully, like I said, you guys enjoyed the video. If you like our content and you enjoy what you see and you want to keep supporting us, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It would mean a whole lot. And, we're all looking forward to BT16, guys. Can't wait to see you there, and we'll catch you on that flippy flip. Bye-bye.